Lucas ran a hand through his hair as he surveyed the half-packed boxes scattered across his apartment. The wedding was only a few days away, and he and Emily were preparing to move in together. Between the excitement and the overwhelming number of things to do, he barely had time to process what was happening. He reached for an old shoebox buried beneath a pile of books in the closet. The box was unfamiliar. Plain, slightly worn, and covered in a thin layer of dust. Frowning, he opened it. Inside, he found an assortment of keepsakes. Ticket stubs, dried flowers, a few Polaroids. Among them, there was an envelope, yellowed with age, its seal still intact. His name was written in Emily's handwriting. A strange chill ran down his spine. Why would she have an unsent letter addressed to him? With hesitant fingers, he tore it open. "Lucas," the letter began. "By the time you read this, I might be gone. There are things I should have told you, but I didn't know how. I hope you can forgive me." His pulse quickened as his eyes skimmed the rest of the letter. The words were heavy with uncertainty, as if Emily had once been on the verge of leaving him. The letter ended abruptly, without explanation. No confession, no clear reason, just lingering doubt. Lucas swallowed hard, his mind spinning. This wasn't just some forgotten note. This was a goodbye that had never been sent. He exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. Was this letter written years ago, before they got engaged? If she had once considered leaving him, what had changed? And more importantly, was there still something she was hiding? Lucas stared at the letter, his thoughts tangled in a web of unease. He needed answers. Lucas couldn't shake the words from the letter. They clung to his thoughts, surfacing in every quiet moment. As the day wore on, the walls of the apartment felt closer, heavier, as if the secret he had uncovered filled the air between them. That evening, the scent of rosemary drifted through the kitchen as Emily prepared dinner. She hummed softly, a familiar melody Lucas couldn't place. From across the room, he watched her, his heart tightening. She looked so at ease, so sure of their future together. Yet the letter told another story. He slid onto a stool at the kitchen counter, folding his hands tightly together. "Smells amazing," he said, forcing a smile. Emily turned, her face brightening. "I thought we could use a quiet night in. Everything's been so hectic lately." She placed a bowl of pasta in front of him, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "You okay? You've been quiet all day." He hesitated, considering whether to bring up the letter. But how could he? Without sounding accusatory. Without opening a door he wasn't sure he wanted to walk through. "I'm fine," he lied, twirling a forkful of pasta. "Just thinking about everything we need to finish before the wedding." Emily laughed softly, shaking her head. "You worry too much. Everything's falling into place." She reached across the counter, squeezing his hand. Her touch was warm, comforting, but it didn't ease the knot forming in his chest. Lucas forced a smile. "Yeah, you're right." But his mind raced. Why didn't she send that letter? What was she afraid to tell me? Over dinner, he tried to focus on their conversation, guest lists, seating charts, honeymoon plans, but the letter's words echoed beneath it all. When Emily talked about their future, Lucas wondered how much of the past she had chosen to leave unsaid. Later, as they settled on the couch, Emily curled against his side, her fingers tracing light patterns along his arm. Normally, this was his favorite part of the day, the quiet, intimate moments that made the stress melt away. But tonight, the warmth felt distant. The letter loomed between them, unspoken. "Hey," he said finally, his voice softer than he intended. "Can I ask you something?" Emily shifted slightly, her eyes meeting his. "Of course." Lucas hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Is there anything you've never told me?" For the briefest second, her smile faltered. It was so quick, so subtle, that most people wouldn't have noticed. But Lucas did. He had spent years learning the language of her face, the small shifts in her expression that revealed more than words ever could. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone light, but there was an edge to it. "I don't know, just—" He searched for the right words. Something from before. Something that maybe still bothers you. Her laugh was soft, but a little too quick. "Lucas, where's this coming from?" "I guess I'm just curious," he said, trying to sound casual. "We're about to spend the rest of our lives together. I want to know everything about you." Emily's smile returned, warmer this time. "You already do." She leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his lips. "And I can't wait to marry you." Lucas kissed her back, but his thoughts refused to settle. When she fell asleep later, curled against his chest, he lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her words had been reassuring, but that momentary hesitation haunted him. And deep down, he knew this wasn't over. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting soft patterns on the bedroom wall. Lucas woke early, the remnants of the conversation from last night still hanging in the air. He had barely slept, his mind churning with unanswered questions. The letter was still in his pocket, the words etched into his thoughts. Emily stirred beside him, her breath soft and steady. He watched her, trying to reconcile the woman he knew with the one behind the letter. Could this be the same person? He reached for his phone, the screen lighting up with messages about wedding details. But none of it seemed to matter in that moment. The letter, Emily's hesitation, the secret, it was all that consumed him. He sat up slowly, careful not to wake her. His heart raced. I have to ask her. He couldn't go into their marriage with a shadow between them, with the nagging feeling that something had been left unspoken. Lucas was determined to find out what it was. When Emily finally woke, she stretched, yawning softly, and smiled at him. "Good morning," she said, her voice warm with affection. But this time, Lucas couldn't return the smile. "Emily," he began, his voice steady but firm. "I need to talk to you." Her smile faltered just slightly, her eyes narrowing. "What's wrong?" He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Last night, I asked you if there was something you hadn't told me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. There's something in that letter you wrote, isn't there? Something you never sent to me. What is it, Emily?" Her face paled, the warmth leaving her expression. She sat up slowly, her hands folded in her lap. The room felt colder now, the distance between them palpable. "I didn't want to hurt you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Then why write it? Why keep it hidden?" Lucas's voice was softer now, but the urgency in his words remained. She looked away, her gaze dropping to the floor. "It was a moment of doubt," she said quietly. "Before we got serious, before I knew I was ready for this, ready for you. I was scared, Lucas. I thought maybe I wasn't enough for you, or that I couldn't give you what you needed." Lucas's heart twisted. The words felt like a punch to the gut, but he had to hear it. He needed to understand. "What do you mean? Enough for me?" Emily swallowed hard, then met his eyes again. "I didn't think I could love you the way you deserved. Not back then. And when I wrote that letter, I was ready to walk away." The silence between them grew heavy. Lucas could feel his chest tighten. He had never imagined that the woman he loved, the woman who had promised to spend her life with him, had doubted their future so completely. "But you didn't leave," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "You stayed. You chose me." "I did," she said softly, nodding. "I came to terms with it. I realized that the past doesn't define what we have. I love you, Lucas. I want this life with you." He closed his eyes, the weight of her words sinking in. He had never known the extent of her struggle, the quiet war inside her that had almost torn them apart. But the question still burned in his mind. "Why didn't you send the letter? Why keep it from me?" Emily looked at him, her eyes searching. "I was afraid it would make you doubt me. I thought if you knew how much I struggled before, you wouldn't be able to see me the same way." Lucas sat back against the bed, his fingers running through his hair. He was torn. On one hand, he understood the fear, the vulnerability that came with admitting weakness. But on the other hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than Emily was letting on. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice rough. "I thought we were past the doubt. I thought we were building something solid, something we could both rely on." "We are," Emily said quickly, her voice full of sincerity. "This isn't about us, Lucas. This is about me. I was scared of ruining everything. And that letter was my way of saying goodbye to the fear." Lucas looked at her, his heart heavy but strangely lighter now that the truth was out. "You've been carrying that fear around all this time, and I never even knew." "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I wanted to tell you, I really did. But I wasn't sure if you could understand." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence hung between them, thick with the weight of the revelations. Finally, Lucas spoke. "I don't know if it changes anything yet, but I need time to process this, to understand where we go from here." Emily nodded, her face etched with regret, but also with hope. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." Lucas stood up slowly, walking to the window. He gazed out, lost in thought. The future seemed uncertain now, the path forward shrouded in a fog of unanswered questions. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of clarity. He would figure this out, together or apart. The next few days felt like a blur. The air in the apartment was thick with unspoken words, and every glance between Lucas and Emily seemed to carry the weight of their shared history and the painful truths that had recently come to light. Though they went through the motions of their usual routines, meals, work, brief moments of conversation, the distance between them felt like an ocean, wide and impossible to bridge. Lucas spent his days in a fog. The more he thought about what Emily had told him, the more questions he had. How could I not see it? How could I not know she was hiding this from me? His mind spun with doubt, and the uncertainty that had crept in threatened to swallow him whole. He couldn't shake the image of Emily's face when she admitted the truth, the fear in her eyes as she had revealed the depths of her struggle. It had been raw, vulnerable, but Lucas couldn't escape the feeling that something was still left unsaid, a missing piece in their complicated puzzle. That evening, as they sat down for a quiet dinner, Lucas knew it was time to address the silence that had been building between them. He couldn't move forward without understanding everything. Emily, too, had seemed distant, her smiles strained, her laughter hollow. They both wore the same mask, of normalcy, of calm, but neither of them could fool the other. "I think we need to talk more," Lucas said, his voice steady, though his hands clenched around his glass. "We can't keep pretending everything is fine, not when there's so much still unsaid." Emily looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of exhaustion and regret. She put down her fork slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "You're right. There's more, isn't there?" she asked, almost as if she already knew what he was going to say. Lucas nodded, taking a deep breath. "I want to know why you didn't send the letter, why you kept it hidden for so long, and why you chose to tell me now. What's changed?" Emily's shoulders slumped, her face softening as she sighed. "It's not that simple, Lucas. It's not just about the letter. It's about everything. About the way I've been afraid of losing you, of not being good enough for you. I thought if I told you the truth, you would see me differently. And I couldn't bear that. But why now?" Lucas pressed, leaning forward, his voice earnest. "Why did you choose to tell me now, just before the wedding?" Emily swallowed hard, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "Because I realized I can't marry you with this hanging over us. I can't keep pretending. I need to know if you can still love me. If you can still see me as the woman you want to spend your life with. And if you can't, then I'd rather know now." The words hit Lucas like a slap. He hadn't expected her to admit it so openly. Hadn't expected her to lay her vulnerability bare like this. It shook him, unsettled him more than he cared to admit. "I don't know what to say," Lucas muttered, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I can answer that right now. But I can't marry you, Emily, unless I'm sure we've confronted everything. Unless we're both fully honest with each other." A tear slipped down Emily's cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. "I'm so sorry, Lucas. I don't want to lose you. I thought keeping this from you would protect us, but now I see that it's been destroying me." Lucas stood up, pacing the room in frustration. His heart was torn, his thoughts spinning. He loved her. He loved Emily with all his heart. But could he truly look past the doubt, the fear she had carried for so long? Could he trust her again? "I need some time," he said, turning to face her. "I need time to think about what this all means, to understand where we go from here. I can't make any decisions tonight." Emily nodded, her eyes full of understanding, though the pain was clear. "Take all the time you need. I won't rush you. I just want you to know. I'm not giving up on us. Not now, not ever." Lucas walked to the window, his back to her. The world outside seemed distant, the city lights blurred in his vision. He didn't know what the future held. All he knew was that the truth had broken them wide open, and the path forward was anything but clear. But as he stared out into the night, a single thought burned through the chaos in his mind. "I need to decide what I'm willing to fight for." The next few days passed in a haze of uncertainty. Lucas had never felt more lost in his entire life. The weight of Emily's confession lingered in every room of their apartment, and no matter where he turned, the echoes of her words followed him. Can we still move forward? He asked himself that question over and over again, but the answer never seemed clear. He had spoken to his friends, sought advice from his family, but none of their words had helped him find peace. They all said the same thing: follow your heart. But how could he? His heart was torn between love and betrayal, between the woman he had thought he knew and the stranger who had just revealed herself. He couldn't ignore the fact that Emily had kept such an important part of her past hidden from him. And yet, there was something about the way she had come clean, so raw, so vulnerable, that made him wonder if there was still hope. Emily, for her part, had given him the space he had asked for, but Lucas could see how hard it was for her to wait. He could feel her anxiety every time they were in the same room, the way she seemed to be holding her breath, as if any moment could break them completely. One evening, after what felt like an eternity of silence, Lucas found himself standing at the door of Emily's bedroom, his hand hovering over the knob. It was a simple gesture, but it felt like a decision in itself. He had been avoiding this moment, afraid of the conversation that was inevitable. But now, there was no escaping it. He opened the door, and Emily was sitting on the bed, staring at the floor. Her posture was hunched, like a woman waiting for the inevitable. When she heard the door creak open, she lifted her head, her eyes immediately locking with his. "Can we talk?" Lucas asked, his voice gentle but firm. Emily nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I've been waiting for you to come to me. I knew you needed time, and I've tried to be patient. I can't keep pretending I don't care." Lucas stepped into the room and sat beside her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy, but it was different now, less suffocating and more reflective. They both knew the time had come to make a choice. "I've been thinking a lot," Lucas began, his voice low. "About everything. About you. About me. About us. I've been trying to figure out if I can get past the hurt, if I can trust you again. But more than that, I've been trying to understand if I want to. If we can still have a future together after all of this." Emily's breath caught in her throat, and she turned her face away from him, unable to meet his gaze. "Lucas, if you don't want to be with me, I'll understand. I've hurt you. I know I have. I just... No, Lucas interrupted, reaching for her hand. He squeezed it gently. Let me finish. I'm not saying I've figured it all out. I'm not saying I can just forget everything that's happened. But what I do know is this. I still love you. I still want a future with you. And I'm willing to try. Emily's eyes welled with tears again. But this time, they weren't tears of fear or regret. They were tears of relief, of hope. She leaned in, her forehead resting against his. I'm so sorry, Lucas. I never wanted to hurt you. I've carried this burden for so long, and I didn't know how to let it go. But I'm ready to be honest with you now. I'm ready to be the woman you deserve. Lucas pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. For the first time in days, the world felt a little less uncertain. There was still work to be done, still things to heal. But this moment, this truth between them, was the first step toward rebuilding what had been broken. I don't know what the future holds, Lucas said softly, his lips brushing against her hair. But I do know this. We'll figure it out. Together. And for the first time in a long time, Emily allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, and there would be moments when doubt would creep in. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough. As they sat there in the quiet of the room, holding on to each other, Lucas finally understood what the unsent letter had meant. It had been a message, not just about the secrets Emily had kept, but about the future they were still willing to fight for. He didn't need the answers to all of his questions right now. What mattered was that they were starting over, and that was a chance worth taking.